The National Lotteries Authority introduces the Lotto app for all Android and iPhones. Your free download available at nlasvg.com. Whether at home, work, or simply having fun, get all NLA game results at your fingertips. View all draws of the National Lotteries Authority on your handset or tablet with the user-friendly Lotto app. Download today at nlasvg.com. The Lotto app.
Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Roundtable Talk. It's really good to be back in the studio after being out for quite a few months, so it's good to be back in studio today. With me on the program are the chairman of the Carnival Development Corporation, Mr. Ricky Adams. We also have a former chairman and current member of the CDC, and in fact he has been with the CDC since 1982 in the person of Mr. Lennox Bowman. Thank you guys. Vincymas 2022, after 2 years of having no carnival, we were able to pull it off this year, 2022. How did it go? And I'll start with you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, first off, thank you very much for having us here this evening. Vincymas 2022 was obviously always going to be a challenge. We took a decision around about March to try to have a Vincymas 2022, and we managed to get it done. It was not perfect, but I think it was important that we got it done, because I don't think it would have been fair to our practitioners of the cultural art forms to put off Vincymas for another year. We didn't have the scale, and we knew we wouldn't have the scale, but we certainly had the energy in the Vincymas product. So I think all in all, it was a worthwhile experience, and I believe we are better for having had it this year.
Okay, we'll talk some more in detail about why you think we're better for, and also about some of the challenges.
Sure.
And what were the different, your assessment, Lennox?
Well, I'm so very happy that we had a Vincymas. And as the chairman said, it's just between March and now we had to put together a Vincymas. And I believe this is maybe one of the earlier discussions which will look at constructively reviewing Vincymas 2022. But I think if there was ever a Vincymas which need constructive review, would be this one. And I think that is because the very shape and survival of the carnival going forward depend on some clear-sighted decision-making. And so I think if ever there was a right time to engage in some really effective discussion on Vincymas, now is the time.
What were the challenges that made organizing and implementing this year's festival? What are the challenges that were different than previous carnivals, would you say, those that stand out?
Well, the standout challenge has always been COVID. Even when we took the decision to have Vincymas, there was still the proviso that we had to maintain a certain level of health status in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so there were some numbers put out, and they said if you exceeded that, so that remained as a level of uncertainty. And so, like, the T-shirt bands were hesitant. Are we going to be able to do it? Because we don't want to invest in bringing in T-shirts and that kind of stuff. A number of the promoters, kept calling us, how certain are you? And we kept saying, well, we can't be certain, but we feel fairly sure. And so that meant that a lot of stuff was happening late. With travel protocols being what they were, people were having difficulty getting flights. And then by the time they started being able to get flights, by the time the travel protocols were freed up, flights were becoming prohibitively expensive. And we still face the challenge of intra-regional travel. Yes, we've now got the direct links from New York and London and Miami, but Liat used to drop 8 flights a day at 50 passengers every day into St. Vincent. So we miss that regional interconnection. So I think those were the 2 primary areas where we faced challenges. And as a result of that, there was lateness due to the uncertainty. And there was, of course, the reduced scale because, people didn't want to go ahead and make the major investments with the possibility that it would not have happened.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, the challenges presented risk, not risk just to us, but risk to all the components, as Ricky stated. And with those were real risks. Do I spend X amount of money investing in a band, and next thing there's a spike and so on? But one thing I think we can both say here today is that we had a very good engagement throughout this process with the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
And I think that helped in a big way for us being able as a CDC to stay on course with the assumption that it is happening, and provided the kind of incentive and excitement necessary for all the stakeholders to take confidence in. And you can see what we had. We had a quote-unquote almost normal carnival.
Do you know, can you say if we had an influx of visitors at all?
Yes, we had some visitors coming in. I know the flights, when we were looking at flights coming out of the US in particular, it was very difficult to get seats on flights, to the extent that costs had risen to the tune of $2,000 to get a seat into St. Vincent at that point in time. I know regionally we had difficulty trying to get even some of our personnel who were coming to do work for the CDC. Regionally, we were having issues getting them here because of the unavailability of flights. So I know we had visitors, but I know that it's not near what we would have had if we had a better flight situation operating regionally.
Okay.
When you don't have the responsibility for a festival, you can talk a lot of things, right? I can tell you, for somebody who's been around for a long time, the Carnival Development Corporation had a lot of challenges trying to make this thing happen, make Vincymas happen, maintain and preserve the brand of Vincymas. And I don't know if Ricky slept any night for anything more than 2 hours or what. But there were guys working around the clock and working and engaging with all the partners and doing what is necessary for what we put out and what a lot of people just take for granted, that it will happen. It just doesn't happen like that. It takes a lot of work, a lot of cooperation to make it happen.
You mentioned something about the preservation of the art form. How do we do that? What are some of the things that the CDC will consider to make sure that this happens?
I think the full breadth and significance of our carnival history must have a place in the school's curriculum. I know I might get a little bit of licks for what I'm going to say, but notions of Christianity must not be allowed to be presented as antithetical to our carnival product. We have to have honesty and a lack of hypocrisy in where carnival is concerned. Okay, so what is driving that? What is driving that is the preservation of our art form. I've been on carnival committee since 1982. Ricky knows I say this all the time. I spent those years there trying to ensure that we preserve and enhance our cultural art forms. For these to be preserved and enhanced, the schools must play a part. There must be that solid, honest engagement to ensure that the system embraces in every way the cultural art forms. So when I talk about preservation, I really want to go there. There's no reason why. Yes, we have calypso competition in the schools, but there are far and few schools that take part in them. We have pans, but for a lot of other reasons, they're not there. They don't. And mass. We need to encourage that art form. We're talking about electronics and graphic art and videography and the metaverse and so on. So we have to have a thinking at the level of the schools and in the leadership. And I'm not saying here this is not the policy of the government, but it has to be embraced in the schools as well. I've been around long enough to know that we have to treat this culture differently if we got to preserve it at the level of the schools.
You mentioned history of our carnival. I would want you to talk a little bit about what exactly is the history of our carnival, because a lot of people don't know. And there's a particular song, Calypso this year, that sort of captured that. We really don't know. We'll talk about that when we come back from this, our first break. Back in just a moment.
Play for.
Here's your chance to win even more from the National Lotteries Authority when you play for 2 times daily. Choose 4 numbers from 0 to 9 and you can win up to $5,000 with a $1 inline bet.
Make sport and back it up too. That's right. There'll be lots of cash waiting for you.
Get your tickets Monday to Saturday for the Play for midday draw at 1:50 p.m. and the Play for night draw 9 p.m. So easy
Play
to play.
for, you'll win even more.
The National Lotteries Authority introduces the Lotto app for all Android and iPhones. Your free download available at nlasvg.com. Whether at home, work, or simply having fun, get all NLA game results at your fingertips. View all draws of the National Lotteries Authority on your handset or tablet with the user-friendly Lotto app. Download today at nlasvg.com. The Lotto app.
Welcome back, and just to remind you that you can make your contribution to the program by sending your questions, comments, what have you, on our Facebook page or on our YouTube page as well. History of Carnival. What exactly is that history? And you both can come in here.
Well, Carnival in its original format was Carnivale, which was getting rid of the flesh. And it was a pre-Lenten festival. And for many years, it was a European Catholic, pretty much led pre-Lenten festival. And when the slaves and so brought their own versions of the culture to it, they brought all the drums and that kind of stuff into the carnival. Because what used to happen is the Europeans at the time, they would have the masquerade balls and all of those things leading up to the Ash Wednesday festival. And so we as the African people began bringing our flair and our versions of the culture into it. And that went on for a while. There was a period in time when Carnival was actually banned because the persons in authority at the time felt that the messaging was getting too strong through the culture. And so they banned it. And in fact, there was a period of a couple of years when there was no carnival. And one year, the persons came out on the street and said, with your permission or not, we'll have carnival. And there were actually riots associated in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, riots associated with people wanting to come back and have their carnival. In roughly about the 60s, the government decided, you know what, we're going to get a little bit more involved in the structure of carnival. And at the time, the JCs was invited to run carnival. And that went on until a period when there was a Carnival Development Committee formed. And they took over the running of carnival for a while, again, more under government control. And then there was the Carnival Development Corporation, so it was incorporated under an act of parliament. And so that's where the carnival is. Of course, we all know that in 1977, there was a decision taken after much thought, and again, subject to a lot of criticism at the time, but there was a decision taken that, you know what, we're competing with Trinidad and all the other carnivals in the region. And if we really want to grow our art form, we need our own space in which to do it. And so that decision was taken to move it to a June-July summer festival. And a lot of people coined that the birth of Vincymas as compared to it being a strictly carnival. And so that's where we've been, and we've grown over the years from that point.
I noticed within recent times, though, that there has been some criticism relative to the timing of the festival because of the heavy rains that we have become used to. I don't know if you have you feel any particular emotion where that is concerned. Is there any chance that the festival would ever be changed to another time?
Well, I could never say that there will never be a chance that it would be. What I would say is, in fact, there are a number of festivals that are summer festivals all across the region. And we, in fact, are one of the earliest. So we're in the earliest of the earliest part of the rainy season. We know traditionally August, September is the peak of the hurricane season. And you have festivals, because when we're finished, then you go to St. Lucia, there's Barbados, Crop Over, there's Grenada, Vincymas, and they go much deeper into the season. I think you have to balance, and one of the things that we have done over the years is we have made a lot of effort to ensure that we can mitigate as best as possible against the rain. So we have built in spare days in our festival. When we're unable to have shows on a particular day, we can actually have them on a day following. We have done work on our infrastructure. I remember the years when if rain fell, the show would come to a halt for about an hour while people were mopping the stage and all of those things, quite a long time ago. So we've got better infrastructure, etc. So we've done a lot to try to mitigate against the fact that we're in the rainy period. And I guess any period would have its challenges. I certainly don't think we want to go back to being a February festival. So I think, while I can't say it will never change, I think we're comfortable that we work with the risks that we have and we try to mitigate them as best as possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much I could add to that very good summary that Ricky gives, even except to say that over the years, St. Vincent certainly has been one of these countries which embraced the development of the art forms and the cultural richness, the creativity of our artists and artisans in terms of providing a continuously developing art form, been commendable. And we know that our competition or the development of our art form is based on good competition between the components and the cultural artists and so on. And that is why when sometimes you hear people talking about the judging of the festival, if your festival is going to be developed based on competition, then the judging of the various competition become very important in the context of what is happening. And that is why throughout the years in the development, CDC tried to focus on having workshops where there's a lot more, I think, that we can do and we will do, but we have been having quite a lot of workshops for the mass calypsonians and panists and so on. So all of these things really help us to now be in a standout situation where in terms of our calypso, soca, our pan and our mass, we are thought of as being leaders in the region, if not the world.
Are these workshops well patronized?
I would say that they could be better. One of the problems we have sometimes is attracting persons to these workshops, especially if, like for the judges workshop. We get the people coming out, the calypsonians to the workshops and the masked men and pan. Judging is a different thing because we have not been very, very kind to judges. And so, you know, but yes, we know we have some work to do, but this work is always done from a city standpoint in conjunction with the components. So that is something I think we will have to look at because given what is happening in this year and so on, I think it's also a good time for each of the components to do their own review of how things are, where they are relative to what they would like to be and what the market is demanding. So I look forward really to those reviews with the components to see how they think about it. And I know CDC looks forward to that as well.
Okay, you have been with CDC, part of the CDC, since 1982. How would you say the festival has evolved over that 30-something year period?
Listen, I am very pleased with the infrastructure development that we've gone through. Ricky was just talking about days and rain coming out of carry mop and so on. We've gone through a lot. In 1982, I think, 82, 83 is when we got our first big stage. And that served us for many, many years until, how many years ago, we got a new stage with canopy and so on. So that part is okay because when you travel to the other countries, you realize, listen, we got proper facilities here. We got sound, good sound and lighting and stage and so on. In terms of the development of the art form, I'm all for cultural evolution. And we have seen, yes, we've had some challenges. It's not easy in case of pan. There's a lot of money it takes to keep pan where it is today. And I think pan is where it is today, not only because you might get some sponsorship, because we need more sponsorship. Pan is it today because of the kind of persons we have loving pan and dedicating so much time and a disciplined approach to support their passion and doing a lot of training and so on. Mass is the same thing. We are looking at an evolution in mass now. But we have to embrace that too, because soon we're into the metaverse and so on, and people smile when you talk about that. But it is here. And for calypsonians, and I think this year, Ricky, we had a one song. And the feeling I'm getting on the street when I speak to people is that, listen, the one song was a good thing because it enhanced the quality of what you heard on the night
of the finals.
Right? And, well, you know where our soca music is. A lot of people say a lot of unsavory things about our soca artists. And I think to me, that is so unfair. Because when you listen to these songs, maybe we have too many out there so people don't find time to listen to all of them. Yes, there are one or two that you might point a finger, or probably this could have been written a little different and so on. But by and large, the literary genius of some of these guys is totally amazing. The producers produce some music which are very good. So we have to, instead of trying to just bring down people, engage the young people, encourage and support them. You know, engage the producers. If you see somebody doing something, don't go out and spread them out on the place. Call the person as your friend. And our senior artists need to also put an arm around the junior artists. Because what happens tomorrow if all the young artists decide to get disenchanted and they don't want to sing anymore? Where's our reservoir going to go? So I believe, to answer your question, that we are moving on. There are a lot of things that we can do. And this CDC, I know for sure, is a listening CDC. For many years now, we have been a listening CDC. And if people don't agree with that, then I can't be. But I know when things come to us and we have our discussions, we listen.
We'll take a second break and come back in just a short moment.
Here's your chance to win even more from the National Lotteries Authority when you play for 2 times daily. Choose phone numbers from 0 to 9 and you can win up to $5,000 with a $1 inline bet.
Makes 4 and back it up 2. That's right. There'll be lots of cash waiting for you.
Get your tickets Monday to Saturday for the Play 4 midday draw at 1:50 p.m. and the Play 4 night draw 9 p.m. So easy
Play
to play.
4, you'll win even more.
The National Lotteries Authority introduces the Lotto app for all Android and iPhones. Your free download available at nlasvg.com. Whether at home, work, or simply having fun, get all NLA game results at your fingertips. View all draws of the National Lotteries Authority on your handset or tablet with the user-friendly Lotto app. Download today at nlasvg.com. The Lotto app.
Welcome back. This year there seemed to have been a proliferation of private events, if you will. How did this affect the festival, in your opinion? Was there a negative? Was there positive? How did that affect?
Well, for years we know that the private promoters have been trying to have as many events as possible during the Vincymas period. We have always been in a position where we think that there's value for private promotion during the Vincymas festival. What we have always been concerned about is not allowing the private promoters' events to basically kill the cultural side of Vincymas, because we don't want Vincymas to degenerate to into being a festival of fets. Now, I've heard private promoters come and say, well, when we launch Vincymas in May, we should give the rural carnivals 3 or 4 weeks and get them out of the way and leave the entire June just for private promoters to make money. I've heard private promoters say, well, Calypso doesn't make money, so the CDC should forget about Calypso. And the Pan is not a money-making show. So we should forget about it, because we should make more space for private promoters to come in and make more money. And our mandate has always been to ensure that the culture of Vincymas survives. what has been happening to us is we've been finding more and more private promoters not only coming in on the days, because we generally say, if you're not competing with a CDC show, we generally say, fine, you can have a show. What we've been finding is now private promoters would come in and say, okay, I want to have a show from 7 to 10. And we'd say, fine, because our show starts at 9, so when you finish yours, people can come to ours, etc. And then we find out that they went till 11, 12, 1 in the morning. And that a lot of that has been happening this year. So that is also affecting our attendance at the Victoria Park. But we continue to realize that there's a need for the private promoters to fill a slot. Because when persons come here, persons want to do 3, 4 events a day. And people come in for a weekend, they want to do 15, 16 events on a weekend. The CDC is not going to provide you with 15, 16 events on a weekend. So we're always hoping that we can fill the calendar with a mix of private promoters events and Vincymas events. One of the things that concerns me is that I don't know where people think that in trying to destroy the CDC and trying to destroy Vincymas, that is going to make it better for the private promoter. Because if we don't go out and we don't push Vincymas and encourage people to come here, then there are going to be less persons here for the private promoters to benefit from. So another challenge we face is obviously there are limited providers of sound and lights and so in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And when there are that many events, the providers tend to be stretched. But it's something we've continuously tried to work out. We've tried to be fair to everybody, and we're going to continue to be that way. But it does present quite a bit of a challenge, particularly this year, for the CDC events.
Someone was asking a question about whether or not it's possible for the CDC to prevent private promoters from benefiting from the CDC's promotions and marketing. I think I got that.
I think, the CDC goes out and we do a lot of regional and international marketing. Very often we don't have the participation of the private promoters in that. But at the end of it, I think the point the person is probably trying to make is that they're not participating in the regional and international marketing. But when the patrons come to Vincymas, they benefit from their presence here. I don't think that we're going to go down the road of saying that we're going to block people who don't participate in the marketing of Vincymas, because at the end of it, I personally believe that Vincymas has to be looked at as the benefit it brings to the country of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, not necessarily to the purse of the CDC. But that must be measured with the fact that the government also needs to understand that it is not about the purse of the CDC, it is about the national purse. And so therefore, when we go and we look for subventions and that kind of stuff, it must be understood that Vincymas as a product has a significant tourism benefit, a significant cultural benefit, and a significant economic benefit where St. Vincent and the Grenadines is concerned. And we have asked before, and we continue to ask, for a study to be done on the economic benefit of Vincymas on the national economy, because that is when we can truly quantify how much of an impact we are making, and therefore we can then argue for more support for the cultural components.
I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind about the socio-cultural economic impact of Vincymas. And I think that is just a reality. I mean, I've been in business for a number of years too. I know the amount of people who, I remember we used to do a loan at Gecko called the Carnival Loan, and we got licks for it. Say, oh, you're lending people money to go and buy costume and things, and that is counterproductive. But you know, the real issue was when you look at the loans borrowed, about 75 to 80% of it were borrowed by people who want to do a little stall, food stall, a little drink stall, so that they could send the children to school. Now, it's unfair to say that you're lending this money for people to have a good time when that is the economic rollover and benefit. There really is no shortage of events in St. Vincent now. Listen, today alone must be have about 2 or 3 events going on.
Yep.
And this has been it on a daily thing. I think I had made a point about Vincymas and about people trying to deface the product, so to speak. And I think my issue with the private promoters will always be that we encourage it. We can't have a carnival here and people coming to just come to the shows at Victoria Park that we have. We ourselves have been trying to diverge. We have Evo and so on. There are a lot of great private shows. What we want the private promoters to do for us is to work with us. Work with us in terms of the preservation of the culture. We don't want all our private shows just to be DJ Big Fit, because we're sending a wrong message. So assume some responsibility for maintaining our cultural art form and promoting them. You know, what do you do? How are you helping us to make sure that the children and mass is involved in your product that you are selling, and how work with us, work with us, because the caliber of product that Vincymas is right now, it should not be shortchanged. It should never be shortchanged. The platforms that you're hearing and the media platform, they have a wide reach. But they have a wide reach and a narrow divisiveness in some cases, which we have to move away from. And we have to engage these people to show them what we're looking at, what the benefit is, and to engage them in a way so that we can disable this kind of divisiveness. There's no place for it. There's enough for everybody here. And we as a CDC have never taken a position that we don't want. As a matter of fact, we have an excellent relationship with most of the promoters, I would say, Ricky.
Yep.
Excellent, and a lot of them, but we just need to deepen that understanding and deepen that working relationship. And I believe that we can do it. We can deepen it for the benefit of all.
How you plan to do that?
Well, engagement, you know, I mean, we have been trying to reach out and engage everybody. This year, I think we didn't get an opportunity to do a lot of it this year because, as we say, we only know we had carnival from March until now. But I know the chairman well enough. I know my board. I know what the thinking is. And I think we are thinking far enough ahead to know that we have a responsibility to manage the festival, manage the development and growth of the festival. And part of that responsibility is to work harmoniously with the stakeholders. And I think we are committed to doing so, and that has got to be our main push right now.
I've listened to comments about the street bars, and you know, it seemed to be now a thing of the past. It's not the same as it was in the 80s and 90s, I guess. What is the CDC's position on the street bars?
Unfortunately, for a few years, the then CDC had taken a position that music in Kingstown should not start until like 9 p.m. or something like that. And so prior to that, what used to happen is right after work, people would just come into Kingstown, as they do on a regular Friday now. Would just come into Kingstown and lime and hang out and so. When that happened, you had the development of the out-of-town events. And over the last couple of years, we've reverted to allowing music to start in Kingstown at 5 p.m. And that's right through the 10-day period. But it takes a while. Just as it took a while for people to move out, it will take a while for the regeneration of the street bars. One of the things that we've always said, though, is that the street bars also need to become more than just a place that plays music, you know, because you can get that on a regular Friday evening. And so what we will have to do is look at ways to provide some other alternative entertainment in Kingstown to keep people in town after work and then allow them to go to the street bars. But when you've developed a culture over a period of time, it's like a ship. You don't just mash the brakes and turn it around. You've got to like slow it down and then try to guide it in a different direction. But I know we've had a number of street bars this year, but in effect, what has been happening is the street bar participation has been limited now to basically the Thursday, Friday. And it didn't help, of course, this year that we had a pretty rainy early part of the week. So even people who would have wanted to come in town wouldn't have been able to because of... But we've reversed the policy in terms of the time, the start time of the music. Now we need to figure out what else we can do to help the street bars to offer something different so that people can want to stay into town.
We'll take a final break and come back.
The National Lotteries Authority introduces the Lotto app for all Android and iPhones. Your free download available at nlasvg.com. Whether at home, work, or simply having fun, get all NLA game results at your fingertips. View all draws of the National Lotteries Authority on your handset or tablet with the user-friendly Lotto app. Download today at nlasvg.com. The Lotto app.
Welcome back. This segment, we want to look a little bit the implementation of shows and some of the things that happened this year. The first thing, the length of Soca Monarch. What plans do you have to make sure that people don't stay in the park until 6 a.m.?
Well, interestingly, in the last time we had Vincymas, prior to this year, we were actually able to cut down the time. This year we actually had some technical challenges. We had an electrical issue at the park just as it got dark. And we suspect it had to do with water damage to one of the pieces of equipment. So that actually delayed our start time. Because the bands were doing sound checks and so at that point in time. But we still feel that we need to tighten up that show. I think one of the challenges, and we've had discussions on that, one of the challenges is people are becoming now a lot more sophisticated with the props that they're using. Because Soca Monarch is showtime for St. Vincent. So sometimes setting up some of those props takes a while. And of course we have to remember that on that competition night, we have quite a number of artists in both segments. And everybody wants to put out, you know, their full performance. So that becomes a bit of a challenge. But we've, as I said, we managed to do it a couple of years ago. We were hampered again this year by some technical issues at the park. And of course, rain always plays its part. So we had rain off and on at the Victoria Park during Saturday night. But really, we recognize that we need to shorten the time for the show. On the other hand, there are a number of people who don't necessarily want you to shorten the time because they want to stay in the park until they break. But we're certainly working on that. We recognize that's one of our challenges that we've had this year. We had a number of technical challenges this year. And so we as I said to somebody earlier, it was important that we have this Vincymas so that we could learn how to do it again, and so that by the time we get to next year, when we'll be back to a full-blown Vincymas, and hopefully have a lot more travel arrangements in place, etc. Hopefully we would have ironed out the bugs and the kinks. You know, there were some I heard a story of one person who's a provider of a technical service, and when he pulled out his equipment, he had 4 pieces of equipment and the first 3 weren't working because they'd been sitting down for 2 years. So, you know, that's why I say it was important for us to have the Vincymas, for us to, again, look at those things and have them addressed by next year.
Okay. Any chance of splitting both competitions?
We've toyed with that idea. As it stands now, we don't think that. A couple of years ago, we
did it one time.
Yeah, a couple of years ago we did it. But I think we for now we're looking at keeping it as a joint show.
Okay. Your thoughts?
No, I agree with what Ricky says. You know, I mean, this has been a year of uncertainty, risk, and in many cases we got it right, and in a few cases we had some setbacks. And but you know, as you know, we learn, we learn, and next year hopefully we will be able to start the ball rolling from today. I think our poster for 2023 is already out, and with that kind of surety, it's not only a comfort to the Carnival Development Corporation, it's also a comfort to all the components and all the stakeholders in Vincymas. And you know, we feel that we in a better place to improve on some of those things that didn't happen so well this year. It's not about making excuses, it's about dealing with the reality. And in cases where patrons might have been felt a little shortchanged, you know, we apologize, and we just hope that we are good enough to our word to make sure that next year we improve on these things.
Whole question of the use of flares at the shows. How are we? What's the position where that is concerned?
A couple of years ago, I stuck my head out and said that that we didn't want the use of incendiary devices at CDC shows. And I was beaten all up Bay Street, down Back Street. People told me that's our culture. Why am I trying to stifle our culture? And that's we thing. People sang calypsos, soca songs on it and everything like that. Unfortunately, again, this year, we've seen a proliferation of the flames on the grounds in the Victoria Park. And we've seen them take it to another level where they're beginning to throw things and that kind of stuff. We've always asked the police to enforce the law. And we know that having objects that are dangerous to the public in a public space is against the law. We've always had a very strong no bottle policy. And again, we've asked the police to monitor that and enforce that. I think the police themselves have come out with a statement. So my understanding would be that when the festival comes around again, that they will be a lot more vigilant in terms of enforcing those policies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This year, there was, for the finals, Calypso finals, competitors sang just one tune. Is that going to be the norm going forward, or this was just because of the nature of this year's festival?
I would certainly hope that it would be the norm going forward. I've maintained for a long while that Calypsonians, and I'm probably going to get licks for this again too, but Calypsonians generally wait until they get into the finals and kind of scramble together a song in the last week. And therefore, you get to the finals with the 11 great songs that have made it through, coming through the prelims and the semi-final stage. And then a song that nobody has ever heard before. So it's not a song to which they'll immediately gravitate. Mm-hmm. It's a song that many people will never hear again, because unless you win, and I've said to the Calypsonians, you are investing time in doing an arrangement, you're investing time in band practice and whatever, you're investing in costuming, etc., for one song that will probably be played once in many cases. I don't know that makes a lot of sense, because we haven't cut down the prize money when we go to one song. So for you financially, time-wise, it becomes a lot more burdensome. So I'm really hoping that Calypsonians will gravitate to the one-song format. I think we had an excellent show this year. There were a lot more patrons in the park. It allowed us to bring Pan into the park again, and so that kind of went back to how the March Gras used to be many years ago, with the three components in the Victoria Park. But again, we'll have discussions with the components. But I think from all the feedback I've got, people really enjoyed the calypsos, which were high quality calypsos that people had heard before and were now coming for the performance, the added on performance, the new pick-on lines and those kinds of things. So I'm hoping that they would stay with that, but components.
You have a hard time convincing them?
I hope not. I hope not. I think they themselves would have seen that.
One thing I can say is that the majority of persons who I've had feedback from were very happy with the one song. Well, they were very happy with the standard of calypso that they got, and with the one song. And the Calypsonians themselves as well. I would think the overwhelming majority, if you were to poll them tomorrow, would tell you that they don't mind the one song. So it's part of our rebuilding. I mean, all this is a rebuilding process too, you know, for Calypso, because Calypso took some good blows, right? Whether it was of their doing or not, whatever was happening around them, dealt them some body blows. That doesn't mean to say that we don't still have some of the best Calypsonians in the region. But everybody needs to work together. The radio stations need to work together. To work together with the components. I mean, Carnival is finished today. Or yesterday. But you look and see. What is the percentage of soca you would hear going forward from now? In some way, the stations is not going to be very high.
It started already.
Yeah. But I just want to jump in on one thing with the Calypso, though. One of the things that was very heartening is the number of youth who are actually involved in the Calypso now. And I made the point that at the semi-finals, we had competitors in the age range from 13 to 75. And so, I mean, that speaks well to the fact that we've got the youth coming in, and we've got the veterans who are still there, and so it's nice to be able to have that mix, because the youth will then learn from the veterans, so that as they retire, these youth would have their skill and their experience, etc.
There's continuity.
We also had a father, daughter, and son. So you know, there's continuity in the art form, and that's what we're looking for.
Great. I think we could spend the next few minutes talking about Vincymas 2023.
Well, as we said, we've got our poster out. Vincymas 2023 ends on July 4th. That's Carnival Tuesday. And we actually did a reciprocal arrangement with the Grenada Spice Mass and Grenada Tourism Authority, where they came here for Vincymas and they put a soca artist on our Soca Monarch stage. And so we're beginning our promotion in Grenada. We're going down to Spice Mass, and we will be promoting Vincymas 2023 at Spice Mass. And of course, going forward, any opportunity we have at the festivals, the summer festivals and the picnics and so in the US, and so we'll be pushing. We'll be back in Trinidad again, pushing again next year. We have a very close relationship with Synergy TV down there, and we work very closely with them, etc. So our marketing and our push, now that we're able to say for sure that we're going to have, and when I say for sure, we're not gods, so we don't have an absolute grip on the future, but all things being equal, we know that 2023 we're going to basically return to a full-fledged Vincymas. Mass bands, a lot of them had their presentations that were scheduled to happen a couple of years ago. They have those presentations already. So, and they didn't use them this year because of the showcase, they only used 2 sections. So a lot of them adjusted their presentations. So they should have their presentations ready. Pan certainly alive and well. So we're really looking forward to 2023.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say it any better. I mean, our artists have been hurting over the past 2 years, and to come and to have done what they did this year, Mass Calypso and Pan, to make this festival still, in my opinion, a resounding success. All kudos to them, and if nothing else, we need to have a good 2023 Carnival, and hopefully our artists will be the greater beneficiaries of the festival.
Thank you both. That's our program for today. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Thank you, Mr. Bowman, as usual. Thank you for coming once again, and we'll see you again next week on Roundtable Talk. Good evening.